Chickity chick, chickity chick, chick, 2, 3, Mike. So I wanted to bring up that I've been boxing since the age of 5, and that I was raised from age 0 to 13 with a Navyman who was accepted the draft in World War II. Went to say a dozen weeks prep. Wasn't a boot camp in the Navy. It was a submarine school. They called it pilot school. They called it torpedo school. It was probably 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, so it was 12 weeks pilot school, 6 weeks torpedo school, and then he was on the boat within another 2 weeks of, I guess, uh, well, he only got about 18 weeks training before he was put on the boat, and he was just over the age of 18 then. So there was that, and I'd been boxing with him, like baby, who's to say, between the ages of 0 and 3. I suppose I wouldn't really recall him teaching me anything. 4 would be a bit iffy as far as recalling teaching him, being taught by him anything. But in school, a focus of mine, kindergarten, first grade, as well as with he, was was to be multiple martial arts as well as boxing, and multiple martial arts came along with multiple martial arts tutors. I didn't have one MMA quote unquote instructor that would teach me a handful of everything and to kill for any of the years. It would be, if you're learning Taekwondo, you have a Taekwondo instructor and you'll get this belt through Taekwondo if you can with this instructor. If you're taking judo, you go to this judo and you learn from this sensei these practice through judo. You'll get this belt through judo, this belt through taekwondo, this belt through jujitsu, this belt through bagua. Um, Karate was last on the list as it's very common, and boxing would be done with family. So boxing would be done with family. Karate would be last on the list. And I'm sure there would be other martial arts to go along with staying healthy as hand to hand fight, um, instead of the um, grueling repetitions of the boxing world, where it would be a stand and deliver footwork, yes, but it's just you punch the guy in the head till he falls down, and you punch him wherever you can above the belt until he falls on the ground, dies, bleeds too much, quits, gets called out by a ref or whatever. So there was that, and that would be from ages 5 in a formal, well, ages 4 to 18 in informal settings of private tutors and etc. Um, so I wanted to bring up that I didn't I call it shortened speech boxing since the age of 5. Of course, when I turned 13, there was the junior Navy exploring, or the junior Navy Reserve officer training. However they phrase that these days, however it was phrased then, that would be a 2003, um, where I was accepted and joined up. Squad up, yo. Well, bulk up, yo. Well, man up at least, said Buttercup. From a pat on the behind, said the tuchus, the tush. Um, the second point I wanted to bring up was, whilst being a volunteer firefighter locally, um, of course I was a volunteer firefighter out of New York City boroughs on Manhattan, um, on occasion, when able, I would devote spare time and free time towards the Manhattan relief effort, quote unquote, due to the surprise attack on the states, quote unquote. Um, right. So locally, a volunteer firefighter. Yes, I wouldn't be. Although I had passed my 6 weeks EMS course, 9 weeks EMS course for the $600 or whatever. Uh, well, responding to calls, I'd be predominantly responding to we've found a deceased rather than can you repair this injured. So so there's that. And I'll go over that again. Well, a volunteer firefighter between the ages of 13 and 18, I would be responding to calls and dealing with the deceased, dealing with corpses. Let's say someone jumped off a two-story window, jumped off a three-story house, or was pushed, or slipped. I guess it could have been one of those three. What wouldn't be a detective? That's not part of the understanding why and the how around that is it would have been part of the PD detective youth programs. But no, let's say that and then they landed head first on the concrete from the top of the house, and the skull exploded, and they're obviously a corpse. And they're yearning for the fields, and rather it's like my parrot going to smells and causing a scene by just being there. Obviously irreparable, unrepairable, um, not able to be fixed. Says so. There was years of that, and that was more of a or less of but I thought it was it had I'm not really sure. Well, it has importance in my mind, I guess. From time to time, I look back and go, "Oh yeah, I was a volunteer firefighter. I wonder what I was doing." And then I go delving with those blinding bellions. Yeah, saying, "Oh no, well, we'll play you. We'll bring you back to earth." And eventually says, "You go delving a little too deep and run into the devil." Um, Yeah, well, or a three-story house in overpass. There are car incidences or shootings or bombs or whatever the hell. Yeah, I'd be dealing with dead bodies for 5 years. Just shovel them up like yesterday's hamburger into the bag, and then shovel sand on whatever kind of blood and mush is left on concrete or asphalt or whatever, what have you. Anything has or what's and tank. Yeah. So it would be cleanly and cause less panic with potential passerbyers. Uh, so yeah, there was those 2 points, and it's not that I'm desensitized. There's still a bit of a sword of the earth and a spirit of William in with me. See how Gramps he went through that training, yes, and after accepting the draft, he asked his brother, who was over 18, to join the Navy with him. Said then, well, hey, we might get on the same boat. Let's go kill some Germans together. And at that point in time, they weren't under the impression they'd be immediately summoned to the other side of the planet before the Pearl Harbor's attacks. Um, so they both got on the boat, and William wound up just simply slipping off the boat and wasn't able to swim well enough, and if he was, somehow the submarine itself wasn't able to stop fast enough, and and he passed away in Long Island Sound, just like that, in 1940 something. Whereas Gramps lived on to teach me boxing for 13 years, said 1990 to 2003, or in professional circumstances, and fund multiple martial arts as well as boxing, Navy, submarinist, tutor, everything to the T, dotted crosses, and well, the T's and I's. I know which one's dotted and which one's crossed. Yeah, I was trying to make it a bit funny then. So anyway, so we got about 20 seconds to chime out. Said, like I said, a bit of a this newborn, stepped on a thumbtack and is now buried, sort of thing, compared to this 110-year-old man Yeah, just had a brick thrown his window, and no longer struggling with old age, but just was sort of bewildered at not necessarily the yin and yang, but if you look at the time a soul might spend before seed or egg, say, on the outside end of the spectrum, and life's potential is 100 years from birth, whether it be conception or when fetus noted as human-esque outs the womb or whatever. They like to argue that and that human and the human lifespan expectancy as far as old age or natural decomposition whilst live, say, is about 100 years. So you get a century after 9 months, or at some point during the 9 months, you'll get a cent, or right from that spark. Um, 100 years, yes. Well, if you look at anything spiritual or soul esque, as consciousness has not been fully discovered, uh, as well as the under the oceans has not been fully discovered. And if you'd like to argue that we know every speck in space is discovered, and give a whole nah, nah, get out of here. Is he serious? Um, I'll fight you for it. Periwinkle Blue. Chime now in 3, 2, 1.